Do you believe in superstitions? Do you believe in ancient energies? Things from way before religion like Christianity ever took hold? Pagan beliefs? Well, I didn't. The brisk air smacks my face as I sit in the passenger seat with the window down, and Hugo drives us toward the new hiking trail. We've been friends since kindergarten and we're practically inseparable. As years went on, we bonded over our love of hiking and just the outdoors in general. We've been on more hikes and camping trips than I can count. This new trail is only about 10 miles away from us, but we've never been to it. It only recently opened up as the FBI had it fenced off for as long as Hugo and I can remember. There were always stories of the haunted forest as kids, classic tales of some friends going into the forest and never being seen again. You know, nothing creative or original, but what can you expect from a group of tweens trying to scare the living shit out of each other? Feds opened it to the public recently and installed a few trails for the hiking. We're not tweens anymore, but something about the forest still creeps me out. Maybe it's the residual fear of the forest from my childhood that hooked onto me through adulthood like a starving fish on a Sunday morning. Hugo glances at me, trying to keep his eyes on the road. Liam, Jesus, close the window, it's freezing. I rolled the window up without saying a word. You good? Yeah, sorry. We walk toward the entrance together, and Hugo notices something just outside of the entrance. A pile of rocks stacked on top of each other with something white on top. I look up to see Hugo practically stomping towards the mysterious pile of rocks. My gaze falls to a pile of intricately stacked rocks surrounding something in a small circle. What was that? Hugo is standing over the rubble. Leave no trace. Assholes are always trying to create art in nature for their little Instagram posts. It's bad for the native environment. Hugo steps back and starts heading towards the trail as I squat down to examine the rubble. I spot something white underneath all the collapsed rocks. What's this? Jesus, is that bone? I look down at the object in question, in horror. It appears to be two small bones that intersect in the middle, held together by an old thin rope. Depending on the orientation you look at it, it's either a cross or an X shape. Hugo approaches the collapsed rocks and kneels to take a closer look. Picking the bones up, he examines it. Dumb kids are probably trying to be funny. Hugo hears something moving in the forest besides the object he threw. He stares at it for a few seconds before I break the silence. Are they real bones? Probably rabbit bones or something. After hiking in silence for a little over an hour, suddenly we were hearing crackling noises. My first thought is an old TV where static would randomly pop up. I quickly realized that would be ridiculous, and who would have an old working TV out in the middle of the forest? We both dart our heads in the direction of the out-of-place noise. What was that? I don't know, some kind of speaker? Both of us stop in our tracks and look at each other in silence. Hugo puts his pointer finger up to his lips. We slowly start moving toward the edge of the forest where we hear the noise, trying our best to stay as quiet as possible in hopes of hearing the direction of the noise. Right there! Hugo points to a spot that's just off the trail and under a small bush. Hugo kneels to inspect the bush.
Come in, Rubber Ducky. This is Bravo 69.
I jump again. I'm starting to put the pieces together. I can hear a second walkie-talkie coming from the other side of the trail. I go and look around in the bush, but I don't have any luck until I hear the crackle a little further into the woods, off of the hiking trail. Immediately, I slip and slide onto my butt into a ditch. When I make it to the bottom, my body flips onto my stomach, knocking the air out of me. As I open my eyes slowly, trying to catch my breath, I see Hugo standing over me. I can tell that Hugo wants to laugh so badly, but his concern for me forces him to hide it. I finally sit up, holding my stomach in pain, and I look up at Hugo, hoping for an explanation of what just happened. When it's clear I'm gonna be okay, Hugo bursts into laughter. Hugo is laughing so hard he drops to his knees, holding his stomach. Now both of us are practically laying on the ground, struggling to breathe, one in pain and the other in laughing bliss. I try to stand up and catch my breath and walk toward Hugo, who is starting to calm down.
What the hell just happened?
I arch my back to stretch it. I stretch my arm out to help Hugo back onto his feet.
And how am I the only one hurt and I'm helping you up? Don't be dramatic. You're fine. I knew you were fine. Yeah, well, tell that to my back.
I assess my injuries while Hugo gets distracted, finding something on the ground. He reaches down and picks up another walkie-talkie.
It's the other one. The other what? Walkie-talkie.
I look over at Hugo, who's still holding the walkie-talkie up to his mouth with a slight grin and a side eye pointed at me. I start walking towards the noise of the other receiver to pick it up.
Found it. These must belong to someone, right? I know they don't allow camping, so maybe it's a couple of park rangers who lost them. But that...
I'm cut off by Hugo talking through the other receiver.
Who cares?
Look, if we find someone along the trail, we'll ask. For now, let's play with them.
Are you serious? Hugo runs into the forest to hide. Hugo and I played hide and seek with walkie-talkies as kids, more times than we could count, but it had been at least a decade.
All right, Bravo 69. Tell me now if I'm hot or cold. Hello? Hello?
Suddenly, the forest crescendos as it surrounds me. It's getting so loud, it's almost unbearable. I pick up my pace to a fast jog.
Hugo? Hello? Hugo?
As I sprint through the brush, I suddenly fall forward as I trip on a stick. I look in front of me and can barely make out a small clearing in the forest. I notice that the sounds have gone from unbearably loud to almost non-existent. The clearing looks like an old campsite that had been used for years, but I know that the feds had never allowed anyone to camp out here, even now that they've opened it up to the public. I walk over to investigate and find that the fire pit still looks somewhat recent. I picked up a stick and started investigating by poking around the coals, and I noticed that there's still an ember at the bottom of the pit, indicating that there was indeed a fire recently. How long can embers last? I think to myself. Before I recall my Boy Scout's knowledge of fire safety, I hear a crack from a stick in front of me, on the other side of the clearing. I dart my head in the direction of the noise, freezing in fear, hoping that it's just a spooked deer that's just as scared as I am. I reach into my backpack, and I look for my flashlight while moving silently. As my hand glides through the pack, I can't seem to find it. Shit, I say to myself. I reach on to the ground where I set my walkie-talkie down. I slowly bring the receiver to my mouth and press the button. I freeze again, waiting for something to jump out of the shadows at me.
Hugo, where the fuck are you?
You're not even close, Rubber Ducky. You're cold as hell.
Hugo's response startles me at first, but gives me a sense of relief in a familiar voice. It's quiet as I wait for a response. I can hear another crack, closer to me this time.
Found you.
The relief I felt fades as the voice that came from behind me was not Hugo's. I jump up and attempt to run, but I trip and fall onto my front side. Turning around onto my butt, I scoot myself backward. My eyes adjust to the dark in time for me to notice that the figure that had snuck up on me was Hugo. Now, I know for a fact that that voice was not Hugo's. However, could it be the walkie-talkie? I think to myself. Maybe the receiver's messed up. Before I can process any more, I notice that Hugo is again laughing at my expense. As angry as I am for this prank, I am again relieved at seeing my best friend. So relieved, in fact, that I forget about the distorted voice that came from the receiver.
Come on, man. Haven't I been through enough already today?
Oh my god.
I'm so sorry. I had to do it. Jesus Christ. I think that's the most scared I've ever been. God, how did you get behind me so quickly? You were across the clearing 1 second and then the next you were behind me. Ah, shit.
Hugo holds up his watch.
We gotta go. I already got 3 missed calls from Mandy.
Hugo walks away immediately without acknowledging my question. I find this strange, but I know that Mandy can be a little bit anxious about Hugo being out after dark. She's had to bail him out of jail a handful of times after we went out, so it's probably for the best. We come to a stop in front of my house. Hugo with a slight smirk, proud of himself for his successful prank, and me exhausted. Thank God we made it. I'm still not quite looking full at him, but in my peripheral I can see his face shrouded in shadow in the driver's seat, and I notice he lifts something up in his hand, the walkie-talkie. Here, you almost forgot this. I roll my eyes as quickly as I snatch it from his hand. I wonder how far they even reach. Oh, maybe they're from some FBI agents or something. They'll probably be pissed that we took them, but I'll just blame it on you. Yeah, very funny. Hugo adds with a mischievous tone. They're coming to get you, Liam. Alright, man, I'll see you later. I'm exhausted. I quickly set my keys in a dish by the front door. Still holding on to the walkie-talkie, I take a look at it. Looking down at my clothes, I realize I need a shower. Now dressed, my wet hair glistening, I use a towel to dry off as I walk toward the couch. Tossing the towel onto the seat beside me, with the phone in hand, I start to look through the emails when the static from the walkie-talkie interrupts me. The sound startles me, and my gaze quickly shifts toward the countertop where the walkie-talkie sits. I put my phone down next to the wet towel and rise to inspect the mysterious device. I pick up the walkie-talkie. My eyes lock on it for a moment. Tentatively, I bring it to my mouth. I press the talk button, but no words escape. I release the button and place it back on the counter. As I stroll towards the couch, a crash echoes from the bathroom where I showered earlier. I freeze, anticipating another noise, but it never arrives. Slowly, I turn towards the source of the disturbance, walking cautiously, ears turned for any unusual sounds. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie crackles, shattering the silence. I jump at the unexpected noise. The crackling persists, accompanied by a voice desperately fighting through the interference. Although the words remain indecipherable, there's an unmistakable tone of pleading. I stare at the walkie-talkie, suspended in a moment of uncertainty. A loud crash reverberates from the adjacent room, the one where the initial disturbance occurred. My expression shifts from concern to frustration. Fucking Hugo. Determined, I move swiftly toward the source of the noise, anticipating another prank from Hugo. The deafening cadence of heavy, hoof-like footsteps reverberate through the air, each ominous clink amplifying the chilling dread that grips me at my core. Panic claws in my chest as I come to an abrupt halt, the clinking echoing eerily in the silence that ensues. The oppressive weight of the footsteps crushes any hope of rational explanation. There are no human sounds. A gnawing realization settles in as I grapple with the terrifying truth that an otherworldly force lurks in the shadows, obscured by the veil of darkness. The walkie-talkie, a feeble connection to the outside world, crackles once more, its distorted voice struggling against the interference like a desperate plea for salvation. Another colossal footfall sends a shiver down my spine, its proximity unnervingly close. The monstrous presence concealed in the shadows remains an enigma, an entity that defies comprehension, yet exudes a malevolence that seeps into the very fabric of reality. With the front door just a few feet away, I sense the urgency to escape intensifying. I spin around, the walkie-talkie clutched tightly in my trembling hand, and spin towards the perceived safety of the outside. The night air thickens with an unspoken terror, leaving me to wonder about the monstrous entity tailing me, its form, intentions, and the dreadful destiny it might unfold for me. I sprint down the dimly lit street towards Hugo's house. The 2-block distance feels like an eternity as I glance back repeatedly, unsure of the unseen threat pursuing me. I'm running, but pull out my phone and frantically try to call Hugo. Come on, pick up. Hugo doesn't answer, but his voicemail plays. Hugo, I need you to answer. I'm coming over. I think there's something in my home I can't explain. Just please be home. As I hang up the phone, I stop in the street, still looking the way I just came from to catch my breath. The walkie-talkie lets off a loud crackle noise. I jump from the sound as I frantically scramble to grab the walkie-talkie.
Hugo? Hello? Hello?
Liam. Help. Help.
It was Hugo.
Hugo, I'm coming over. There's something in my house. You're home, right?
No response from the walkie-talkie as I get frustrated with Hugo. I let out a frustrated groan from the lack of response in my time of need. I put the speaker to my ear and I can hear Hugo slightly better the more I go towards the direction of his house. I still can't make out clear words, only parts of words. As I approach Hugo's house, the crackling stops immediately. I walk to the door and I knock on it non-stop, still looking over my shoulder until a woman answers the door. It's Mandy, Hugo's girlfriend. She looks like she's scared, maybe from the frantic knocks, but it looks like she's been worried about something else even before that.
Where the hell have you guys been? I've been calling Hugo all night, and I was just about to call you. What do you mean? He never came home?
We stare at each other in shock before a crackle from the walkie-talkie brings us back to reality. I look at my hand holding the walkie-talkie, and I bring it closer so the both of us can hear it.
Please. Please help. Please. Please help. Please. I'm still in the woods. Please help. I'm still in the woods.
Is that Hugo? That's Hugo.
Yeah, but... Before I can finish, the walkie-talkie lets out a very loud crackle that causes both of us to jump. I lose grip of the walkie-talkie and drop it.
What the fuck is going on? I don't know. Hugo and I, we went on a hike. We found these walkie-talkies, and he drove me home, and I thought he was heading straight here. So he never came here. He never came here after he left for the hike. Did he go back to the hiking trail? Are you sure it was him that dropped you off? Oh, God.
No, I'm sure.
I think so. What if he's still in the woods? Look, I'm gonna go back to the trail. I'm gonna go look for him, okay? All right, I'll talk to you when I find anything.
I speed through the night, tension etched on my face. With the speed I'm going, it only takes me about 15 minutes to reach the trail again. Hugo's car is hastily parked, lights on, engine running, driver's door ajar. I exit my car, eyeing Hugo's vehicle with concern. No sign of Hugo around. As I head towards the trail, a rustling in the bushes startles me. I scan the area, noticing the rock pile Hugo kicked over during our last hike. The rocks are now stacked again. I pull out my phone, using its light to illuminate the pile. To my horror, the bone effigy thing is back, consisting of fresh, meat-covered bones wedged between the rocks. I recoil. Backing away, I stand at the edge of the trail, peering into the darkness ahead. The walkie-talkie screen flashes indicating a dying battery.
Hugo? Hugo! Shit.
Hugo's car suddenly turns off, headlights extinguished. I, caught off guard, squint towards a silhouette behind the car near the trunk.
Hugo, is that you? Hey, Hugo, is that you?
The silhouette is unmoving.
Hugo?
Liam.
The voice is eerily clear.
Hugo? Where are you?
I notice the walkie-talkie has died. Pacing in frustration, I dial Hugo's number, hearing a faint ringtone from Hugo's still open car. Spotting the source, I squint at the silhouette and then at the car. As I begin approaching the car, the silhouette begins to change. With the wretched sound of tearing and stretching, the human silhouette expands, revealing a much larger, non-human figure, something long-limbed, spindly, and jagged edges to its skin, and what seemed like branches or antlers breaching from atop its head. Terrified, I back into the trail and run off into the shrubbery. The sounds of footsteps are drowned by my rapid escape through the woods. A faint yell emerges, not far off.
Hugo!
I run towards the screams, occasionally stopping to listen. As I cautiously approach the source of Hugo's repeated voice, the forest around me seems to close in, casting eerie shadows that dance in the dim light. The haunting echo of Hugo's words creates an unsettling atmosphere, making every step feel like a descent into an otherworldly realm. As I cautiously approach the source of Hugo's repeated voice, the forest around me seems to close in, casting eerie shadows that dance in the dim light. The haunting echo of Hugo's words creates an unsettling atmosphere, making every step feel like a descent into an otherworldly realm, a descent into madness. Upon entering the clearing I had discovered earlier, the air becomes thick with an overpowering metallic scent. The moonlight reveals a ghastly scene, a congregation of people gathered around, their faces illuminated by the glow of an unseen force. The twisted, repetitive cadence of Hugo's voice adds a surreal touch to the macabre tableau. My breath catches in my throat as I witness the group engaged in a ritualistic feast. The ground is littered with remnants of torn flesh, and the participants, their face smeared with blood, move in a synchronized frenzy. The pale moonlight reflects off their vacant eyes, giving them an otherworldly, almost supernatural appearance. The raw meat, glistening with crimson, is devoured with an almost primal hunger. My senses are assaulted by the grotesque symphony of tearing flesh and the guttural sounds of feasting. The shadows cast by the participants contort grotesquely, creating a nightmarish dance of silhouettes against the backdrop of the clearing. As I remain hidden in shadows, a shiver runs down my spine, and the air becomes charged with an otherworldly energy. The scene unfolds like a waking nightmare, blurring the line between reality and the macabre fantasy playing out before me. The revelation of this horrifying tableau leaves me paralyzed with a mixture of fear and fascination, uncertain of whether I have stumbled upon a ritualistic cult or an ancient supernatural force. I scan the firelit area for Hugo, finding a severed head on the ground. It's Hugo's, with his mouth agape. Hugo. Hugo. As every person in the clearing abruptly halts their frenzied feast, their bloodied faces turn collectively toward me. The air becomes charged with an electric silence, broken only by distant howls of unseen creatures. Panic clenches my chest as I instinctively take a step back, my eyes widening in horror at the group's malevolent gaze fixed upon me. The heavy footsteps echo ominously, amplifying the sense of impending doom. The savage group, still unified, forms a haunting half-circle around me. The moonlight casts grotesque shadows on their contorted faces, adding an eerie quality to their collective stillness. Suddenly, the ancient monster emerges from the shadows, a grotesque fusion of nature gone awry. Its form is an amalgamation of twisted branches, mottled bark, and gnarled roots that writhe and pulse with an unnatural life force. Eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intelligence peer out from the tangled mass, its gaze penetrating the very core of my soul. I realized it had been standing there the entire time, blending into the forest as one of the many trees scattered around them. My mind raced, yet time stood still. I couldn't even think over this dreadful shock through my body, like a dark energy vibrated through the air, moldy, sickly sweet, ancient. The air seems to vibrate with an ancient malevolent energy as I, now paralyzed by fear, lock eyes with this monstrosity. The creature's presence emanates a foul stench of decay and earth, blending in with the metallic tang of fresh blood lingering in the clearing. I, realizing the futility of escape, feel a cold sweat bead on my forehead. As I open my mouth to scream, a man steps forward from the shadowy throng, his features distorted by a grotesque grin. This surreal moment of terror, I comprehend the inescapable truth. My fate is entwined with the ancient malevolent force embodied by this creature and its savage followers. The air becomes charged with an eerie anticipation as the monstrous entity closes in, its pulsating, unnatural form casting a nightmarish silhouette against the moonlit clearing.
Hugo, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.